I thought we could first talk a little bit about CVS. Have you guys heard about CVS in the news lately?
I saw the article that you put there.
So let's talk about this for a little bit. Does anybody have any comments?
Wow.
Well, first, does everybody know what's going on? Let's start there. Does everybody know what's going on with CVS? Why don't I have somebody tell the class what's going on with CVS for those of us who haven't heard? Right.
Well, basically, I think it's 7,600 stores that they're going to stop selling tobacco products in. And they claim because it's for health reasons and to help the people. I honestly think it's a marketing thing, and they realize that, you know, the world is, a lot of people are awakening to good diets, fitness, and stuff like that. So basically not making enough money off cigarettes. And they said, I think it's a $2 million loss. Billion in the grand scheme of things, though, for CVS, that's not a huge loss for them, not by far. So I mean, it's awesome that they're doing that, but I don't know, it just really bothers me that everything in America, our world, is so money driven. It's not that they truly care about the people, because there's so many other things in CVS that they sell that really isn't good for our health. And it's just like, they're gonna spotlight this, it's on mainstream media, so everyone's gonna say, oh, yay, CVS, let's shop there. So it just upsets me. Because cigarettes aren't the only thing that they should ban, you know? They should ban Walmart, Target, all those places.
Yeah, comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, only comment I would have is that once they stop selling tobacco products, then that means that $2 billion that they're gonna lose, they gotta make it up somewhere. They're going to not hire as many people, figure out how they're gonna cut wages, you think? Products are definitely already high at CVS, so they're gonna be a little bit higher. But it just seems to me that, I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, anybody can get cigarettes at the gas station, so they don't have to sell. But I remember back in the day, CVS didn't sell tobacco products, you know, until it just became the norm.
All right, hold that thought. I'm gonna go back to something that you said.
And another thing that trips me out, President Obama praises the company's decision. He's the same person that allows Monsanto and everyone else to have GMOs in their stuff. So it's just crazy, like, I don't know. It's just how they advertise it, like the government, the monetary system, the banking cartels are so good and they're for the people when really they're not if you dig really deep into it. President Obama's not for the people. I'm sorry. I'll go on and on about
Any other comments about CVS?
No, I don't. Not yet.
I want to go back to what Melissa said. She made some very good points, and she was thinking, I would like to say, in terms of manager. She said, well, they're losing $2 billion, which somebody said is not really a lot of money, but it is a lot of money. Sure, I mean, it may not make or break CVS, but it's still a lot of money. We're talking $2 billion. And she's right. They are going to have to figure out another way to make up for that loss. They can't just eat it, right?
Yeah.
So we do have to think about what might happen as a result of them doing this. It may be a reduction in staff. It may be higher prices. These are all things that we have to potentially look at happening because we don't know. Now the other thing is this number is just estimated. It could be less than 2 billion. It could be more than 2 billion. We don't know. We won't know until it actually gets put into play, which will be later on this year. But I'm not trying to get too much into smoking and not smoking because it's a personal choice. But there's a few things I want to highlight. One, it may seem like a publicity issue, and it may be to a certain extent, but you have to remember this is also somewhat of a public health issue because smoking affects not just the individual, but it affects all of us, right? Because we are exposed to secondhand smoke. So it's a public health issue. It's something that public health people are going to enjoy seeing. But the main thing that I want to talk about, and the main reason that I brought this up is because, number one, next week we're going to cover strategy and planning, and a lot of that deals with mission. Does anybody know what organizational mission is? Each organization has a mission, and in their mission it's a statement, and it basically states what their purpose is for being in business. So what this CEO has done is remembered the mission of the organization. How can it be a drugstore that's selling tobacco products, right? Sure, you said that there's other products in there that they probably shouldn't sell. We could say maybe junk food and everything else.
I'm sorry, one more thing. America, I think we're what, 5% of the world? We consume 60% of pills, for just pills, all sorts of pills, and they sell that. So I mean,
Yeah.
they're not going to stop that, are they?
No, but that's kind of their, that's the reason they're,
But it's not healthy. That's what I'm trying to say.
that's debatable though. Pills might be healthy for some people. I don't think it's the pills that's unhealthy, it's the use.
Or even a lot of the pills, like high blood pressure pills. If you drink, 3 glasses of celery juice a day, that's equivalent to what that pill does for high blood pressure. And it's been proven in studies they don't do that because it's cheaper. It's more marketable, it's more profitable.
Oh, of course. I mean, every
That's what I'm
company
saying, that whole
is
thing with
gonna make
CVS.
money. But I want to circle back to what I was saying. I don't want to get off topic too much.
sorry.
Is that this CEO thought back to what the mission of the organization is, and sometimes as a leader you may kind of get off track from that, and it's important to get back on track by remembering whatever your purpose is for being in business. And this is an example of a leader or a manager that has circled back to the mission and figured out that something wasn't right, and they've made the step to discontinue something that's not in line with their mission. And so that's the big take home here that I was trying to relate to you guys through CVS and what they're doing. Does anybody else have any other comments about CVS? I also posted that article on the announcement board if you want to read more about it. We were supposed to do an in-class assignment today, but we're going to talk about something else that I think is a little bit more important right now, especially since you guys have a writing assignment coming up. So, if you could turn over the papers, look at the first packet. Don't worry about the second packet right now. What I have printed out, and if you don't have a copy, let me know. I think I gave everybody one. What I have printed out is a copy of a report called a SafeAssign Report. And SafeAssign Report is, for every assignment that you do, it gets submitted by me through SafeAssign. And the purpose of SafeAssign is to monitor if students are plagiarizing, and kind of just to monitor what types of resources students are using when they're doing assignments. I submit your work, your case studies, your writing assignments, and I randomly do discussion board posts all through SafeAssign. So what we're going to talk about today, we have 2 examples of reports, and I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to ask questions, because since you guys have writing assignments coming up, I want to make sure that everybody's doing this right. So the first report you see, and to maintain confidentiality, I have marked out this student's name, any personal identifiers that you could use so that it remains confidential. The first report you see is, we're going to go through this and we're going to point out, or I'm going to point out some things that should be corrected. So we'll start at the top of the report. And you see in the first box is basically the personal information. It's going to state the file name, person who submitted it, paper ID. Each assignment has a paper ID. And then you also see a matching area. And can somebody tell me what that percentage is?
Like
Yes, ma'am.
80%.
Yes, this percentage is 88%. Do you guys think that that is good or bad? Are we all in agreement that that's bad?
Yes.
All right. Yes, 88% is not so good. Basically, what that number means is that within this assignment, 88% of this assignment can be found somewhere online. SafeAssign searches all websites online, all websites, to find matches between your paper and anything online. That includes, you know, all types of websites, everything. So it's very hard to skirt the system when I submit your work through here. If we go down to the second box, which says suspected sources, this tells me specifically where this person went. So not only do I get a matching percentage, I see specifically each website that they used within their work. So if you just scroll down through the different numbers, you can see that they use several different websites. And if you go down to number 7, what does that say?
Wow.
So not only does this pick up websites, but if for whatever reason another student has posted their paper somewhere online, it is going to pick it up. And I'm going to see it. The 88% is reflected from all of these sources within the suspected sources box. So if we go down to the next section, let me stop there. Does anybody have any questions or comments about what I've talked about so far? Yes.
What's an acceptable percentage? Like, not saying I'm trying to cheat, but
We'll get to that a little bit later. Hold that question. Don't forget it. I'll come back to it. Any other questions? All right, so let's keep going. Down to the next section that says paper text. So this section is the actual paper, whatever you've submitted. This is the area where that is going to be. And it's not just excerpts, it's your entire paper. So if you quickly look, flip over to the next page, you'll see from page 1 to page 2, that's basically their entire paper. Now let's go back to the first page, and you can see, tell me some of the things you see that you have observed.
Percentages.
All right, so it has percentages. Yes, thank you. Anything else you see? You should see that the text is underlined, right? So everywhere the text is underlined indicates a match. So if we just take this first page and we scroll down, basically most of this is a match all the way into the bottom where the sentence starts, healthcare reforms, right? There's no match there because there's no underlining. So if we go back to the beginning of the paper, we see a number. We see a 1. Does everybody understand that corresponds to the number 1 in the suspected sources? So that 1 tells me that this information that they have right here is from that website. And if we keep reading, then we see a 2, which matches to the second under the suspected sources. And not only does it list what website you got it from, but it tells me how many times you used it, which is why you see multiple 1s, multiple 2s. Does that make sense to everybody?
So the percentage is just how it matched up. Like
Which percent? Okay, so you mean like 86?
Yeah.
That basically means that from that website,
That's how.
yes, that's basically how close it is. So you'll see some places where it's 100%, right? Yes.
question, when they're matching, are they matching verbatim, like a dog eats food?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not like, say I make a sentence and it says my dog eats food.
No, they're matching verbatim.
Oh, okay.
Verbatim. Which is that, that's kind of what that percentage says. So it shows that there's a little bit of change in there, but not much.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So what was I saying? So yes, we see that there's multiple 1s and 2s, which means that they use that area or that website more than one time. Every time that there's a number means they use that source. And as I said, there's some areas where we see 100%, which means it's completely verbatim. Does anybody have any questions about, yes?
What about the references?
We'll get there.
Oh.
Does anybody have any other questions about page 1? All right, so let's flip over to page 2. And we'll keep reading. And we see that, again, we can see that this person used that second source a whole lot because we see more 2s, right? We keep going down. We finally see a 3. We see a few 1s again. Couple 4s, couple 5s. So again, you can see, we see more underlining, all the way down to an area where it says the governing body. That's pretty clean. That's where they actually kind of did some work, right? But not for long, because you see that the underlining picks back up, right?
Oh, wow.
And then we keep going down to the last few sentences of the paper, and you can see again that they kind of did some work there. So let's go back to, we said that number 7 source was from another student's paper, right? If you look in the report, you can see that that 7 is listed where?
In the references.
In the references. And you can see along with that 7, there's other matches there in the references. So is that good or bad that they have matches in the references?
Everybody gonna reference the same, right? You're referencing in
Yes.
a specific way.
Exactly. If you're referencing correctly,
Yeah.
you're more than likely going to have a match there. So I'm okay with matches in the reference section. Those don't give me heartburn. It's this that gives me heartburn. Yes, sir, you have a question?
That was the question. I was going to say, how do you have matching references?
Yeah. Most people will have matches in the references if they've cited it correctly. Now, if they've done their own thing and it's not APA and it's whatever, then they may not have any matches in their references. But if it's correctly cited according to APA, then you'll probably have matches in your references. And that's okay. Now, to go back to your question of what's an acceptable percentage? Well, this paper had 88%, right? Well, what we also know is that some of this person's matches were in the references. So what this tells us is that while this percentage is important, we can't hold it to 100% because some of the matches may be in the reference section, which I'm okay with. Now, looking at this paper, we still know that it's not good, right? Because even if we exclude the matches in the reference section, they still have a lot of matches in the paper, right? So to answer your question, what's an acceptable percentage? It's not really an answer for that. I don't want to see 88%. When I'm reviewing this report, the matching percentage is going to be the first thing that I look at, but it's not going to be the only thing I look at. I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to look at the paper text section to see how many matches you have in the paper text section versus how many matches you have in the references section. I've seen reports where the paper text section was clean, but the references had matches and the matching percentage was 30%. I've seen papers where the matching percentage was 5% and they still had matches in the reference section and that was it. So it's kind of hard to give you a number. And I understand that, this is an intro class and a lot of you guys are still developing as writers. So I'm not necessarily going to expect you to have 0% or 1%. But the reason that we're taking time today to go over this is so that you can know what to do so that you do not have a report like this. These reports do not make me happy. So now that we've looked at this report, I got a few questions for you guys. What have they done? It's possible that they plagiarized. Yep, they might have plagiarized. What else have they done? Say it again.
Cheated.
Why do you say cheat?
Because they didn't take the time to do the work.
They didn't do anything. What have they done besides Control C?
Submitted it.
What have they done? Did you have your hand up?
I was gonna pretty much say the same thing that you just said.
Yeah.
It's just, I think they took bits and pieces and.
Yeah, they went through multiple websites, put things together and turned it in as a paper. Is that college level work?
No, no.
Is that your skill level of work? Or are you capable of doing more than that?
I would hope.
They basically put together stuff that I could already find on my own online if I went browsing. So they haven't done much work. So a paper like this is probably going to get a personal phone call or email from me as well as an F. Because chances are they may have plagiarized as well. I mean, we should all know that this school has 0% tolerance for plagiarism. Serious business. But in addition to that, they haven't done any work. And you guys hopefully don't pay money to come here not to do any work. And I don't take time to teach you guys for you not to do any work. So, does anybody have any other questions or comments about this report? Yeah.
I have one question. Now say I do have one that says 100%, but I have, what do you call it, insight, what I'm trying to say. You know when you insight it, like.
If you, so your question is if you have matches but you've cited it.
Yes.
That's a good question. Thank you for asking. Even if you have cited something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have not plagiarized. That's important for you guys to understand. When you're looking up resources and you're looking at peer-reviewed articles and journal articles, the intent is not for you to just take a sentence from there and plop it into your report. It's for you to read it, digest it, synthesize it, and put it into your own words. Does that make sense? So if you've correctly cited and correctly paraphrased, then you wouldn't have matches even if you cited. Because in essence, if you're doing that, you're doing the same thing this person did. You're only taking it from a journal and not a website. You still haven't done anything but copy and paste, right? Yeah. Yeah.
So, even if we take something that we found and rearrange it in our own words, is it still good for us, like, to cite it?
Yes, you still need to cite it because you got that idea
You gotta
from
know
somebody
where it came
else.
from.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
yeah. Anything that's not your idea needs to have a citation. You need to give credit to that person. If I spend years and years writing an article, you better believe I want credit every time somebody uses it, right? So we need to give credit to those authors and writers that have done all that work to create an article. Any other comments about this? All right, so you guys should have another report. And we're gonna go through this one also. So let's talk about this report. It looks a little different. What's the matching percentage here?
1%.
1%. 1%. And then we see in the next box the website that they used, suspected sources. And note that says suspected, which means that's what they suspect, but we don't know for sure. So it's not absolute, you know?
When we turn in our paper, it tells us our percent, right? When we turn it in.
It depends on the settings. I don't have the settings made that way for you to see. It varies. It varies from instructor. It depends on how they have it set up.
Okay.
I don't have it set up that way because once you submit it one time to see your percentage, you can't submit it again.
No, yeah.
So I manually submit each person's paper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Lost my train of thought. Okay, so tell me some of the things that you have observed that look a little different. Yes, ma'am.
Their works cited is wrong.
Well, we're on page,
I'm
start
sorry.
on, we'll get there.
Nothing's underlined.
Nothing's underlined, what else? No percentages, right? It's pretty clean, right? So that's good, right? It's good. All right, let's turn to the next page. Again, we see it's pretty clean, no underlining, and we see that that number 1 is down in that reference section. So I'm okay with that. Again, as he said, I'm okay with matches in the reference section. I'm not so concerned about that as I am about the actual text part where you've written your paper. So, what does this report tell me? They did some work, probably, right? We'll come back to that.
Understand the material.
Tell me anything else?
They understand the material.
You understand what's going on? They're probably a decent writer, right? They've managed to be able to put things into their own words and all that stuff, right? The main thing that I want to see when I'm reading your paper is I want to be able to see and hear your voice. Each of you guys are different. Each of you guys talk different. Each of you guys learn differently. So your papers should all be different, but they should all be in your voice. So while this paper is great, according to this report, let's say I go back and I look at this student's case study assignment or their discussion board, and it's not like this. Should I be concerned? Why?
Someone else.
Somebody else might have wrote it, right? Or, I mean, I can think of that as a possibility, or it could just be this person actually put some time into this and is not putting time into their weekly discussion boards or their case studies, right? So what I'm trying to get or relay is that there should be a certain level of consistency within your assignments. This should look fairly similar to how your discussion board posts look, to how your case studies look. Otherwise, I am going to be a little bit concerned when I start asking some questions. I'm going to kind of just want to know what's going on. I'm not going to accuse anybody, but it'll bring up maybe some flags for me. Now, the other thing is, if this is writing assignment 1 and 88 is writing assignment 2, it may raise some concerns as well. Because why did this writer go from 1% to an 88%? So what I'm saying is, I don't just use these SafeAssign reports for grading purposes. I also use it for comparison purposes. If I see someone going backwards, going from a great report to a not so great report, I'm going to want to know what's going on with that student. Now, if it's the other way, and they're going from a not so great report to a great report, then I also have proof that this person's developing, they're growing, they're becoming a better writer, right? So these reports are important to me for multiple reasons, not just for your grade. It's also for me to monitor how you're doing, how you're growing. I have SafeAssign reports from students in their first H&T class up to their last H&T class, and I can really see differences in writing and growth. So these reports are all stored, they're not deleted. So I have SafeAssign reports from last semester, semester before that. So it's important to note that just because you got a great SafeAssign report, don't think that you can get away with not having the same quality, because I can go back and see what you did before. Does that make sense? Any questions about? Now let's talk about grading, how the grading works. So like I said, with the 88, this will obviously be an F. And it will be to my discretion as to if I want to let you rewrite it or not. This would, even though, I don't know, this may not have been their work, they still did everything right. So this is gonna be an A paper. Now, again, like I said earlier, this is an intro class, so I'm not necessarily expecting each of you guys to have a 1%. You may have some matches in your paper. And I'm okay with that. But what I'm not okay with is the 88%. So when I'm grading your writing assignments, if you look at the rubric, you'll see that there's several different categories. There's a content category, there's a peer-reviewed article category, there's a formatting and grammar category. So the category that would be affected by your report is the content. So what that means is, if you get a report, if I get a report on your paper, and it's not 88%, but it's about 40%, you may get some points deducted out of your content category for your paper. So this is how it plays into your grade. Any other questions or comments about this report? So when you're doing your writing assignments, when you submit them, each of your assignments will go through SafeAssign. And I review all of the reports before I grade your paper. So what that means is when you're researching and finding your articles and writing your paper, you want to make sure that, again, it's your voice, that you're reading the information, thinking about it, and then saying to yourself, now how would I say that? And that's what you should be writing, as opposed to just taking what you find in the journal article and putting it into a paper. So for each one of you, when I read your papers next week, I should be able to hear and read your voice. And like I said, all of you have different voices, all of you are at different skill levels, so I can pretty much know what to expect when I'm reading your paper. Now, if, we've had about 3 or 4 weeks of discussion board, and if your discussion board post looks nothing like your paper, I'm going to ask some questions. So I'm telling you now, so don't be offended if I ask questions. But the main thing is for me to hear your voice. I want it to sound like a paper that you wrote. It should sound like you and I are having a conversation. That's what I should be able to see when I'm grading your paper. And this is important, not just for people who are planning to transfer to a 4-year university. It's definitely important for those students because their policy is on this is much more tighter for most cases. But why else might it be important, even for those that are not going on to 4-year university? Why might it be important for those who are choosing to go into their careers after they finish here?
Because with anything, you want to hone your skills, and the way you write is usually how you talk. So, especially in a manager position, you need to be able to effectively communicate and not, use LOL and, stuff like that.
That's one very good point. You want to make sure that you can effectively communicate.
Articulate yourself. That's the word.
Any other reasons why might be important? It's very similar to what she has said. If you are out in the work world and you're having to turn in reports, let's say you have a report due to your boss. You don't want to just go online and turn into your boss something that person can find on their own. It should, still be a report that's your voice. A lot of times, bosses are going to be too busy. They're going to need something very short. And so the ability to be able to take what you've read and put it into a short, concise memo is important. And that's what we're trying to develop here. And the other thing is similar to what you said. Just as I said that you guys are all at different levels, you're going to be managing people that are all at different levels. So you need to be able to get information, synthesize it in a way that everybody's going to be able to understand that. And the best way for that to happen is probably for it to be in your own voice, right? You can't have a management meeting or a staff meeting with your staff to talk about a new MRI system that's going to be used and be reading straight from the article. You aren't going to understand that, right? As opposed to you saying in your own words, listen, we're here to meet about this new MRI machine. It's going to save us $2,000, et cetera, right? So even if you aren't planning to do any more writing after you leave here, it's still important that you know how to effectively communicate and to know how to transform and synthesize information into your own words and be able to speak to that to other people. Does that make sense? Any other questions or comments? I want to make sure that everybody understands how this works because your writing assignment is a good chunk of your grade. So I should not see any 88s next week, right? If you have any questions while you're writing, let me know. If you do the writing assignment early and you want me to run it through to see where you're coming out at, email it to me so I can run it through, and then that way if there's any issues that need to be fixed, you can fix them before it's due. Now, as far as submitting the actual assignment, it does need to be submitted through Blackboard. But if you want me to look at it early, then email it to me. And that's the same for any assignment. All assignments are going to be submitted through Blackboard, but if you want me to review it early, email it to me. Does that make sense? Any other questions about this? Sure. All right. If you don't have any other questions, then that's all. This is very important to me, because if you don't get this, then you won't get my classes, because we write in every class. And so I thought it was important enough to take the time during this class session to go through this with you guys and go over it so that everybody understands how this works. So if you don't have any other questions, you guys are free to go, and I'll see you guys next week.